Well, hello, everybody. It is showtime, and thank you for tuning in to Self Publishing Insiders with Draft to Digital. We are really thrilled to be here today. Equally thrilled to have our guest today, Emma Dhesi. Emma, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you very much for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, and anyone listening, you may have noticed a slight accent, and yes, I am from Texas. So thank you for pointing that out. But Emma, where are you hailing from today? Where are you?
So I'm in Scotland. So I come from a city called Glasgow in Scotland, but I actually now live on the other side of the country in a place called Edinburgh, which is our capital city here in Scotland. And that's where I've been living for the last 5 years, since 2017. And so now making that home and got settled and enjoying the city. It's a very beautiful city. So if you have not been, I do recommend you come. And we have a fabulous book festival actually every August. So come along for that.
That sounds like my wife is going to make me take you up on that. Because that's a dream location for us. You said both those city names as if no one's ever heard of either of them. I appreciate that you did that, but I hear Edinburgh's kind of become sort of a tech mecca now. It's almost like a Silicon Valley of sorts, right?
Gosh, I don't know about that actually. That's new to me. I know that there's a city that's just north of Edinburgh called Dundee, and that has been the home of gaming in Scotland and in Europe. A lot of games have come out of there. A lot of the gaming technology has come out of Dundee University. So it could be sort of tied in with that, would make sense. But it's something that unexpectedly has come from Scotland. Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah. Isn't that something though? I kind of like that. Let's spread that out. Let's diversify that a little. So what's the book scene? And we're far off topic, and I apologize, but I'm going to pick on you for a little bit. What is the sort of author scene like where you are?
So the author scene, Scotland is it's got this really, really strong crime scene going on. So there's the Tartan Noir, which is how they kind of dub themselves. And there's a lot of writers doing very well. So we've got people like Ian Rankin, who wrote the Rebus series, which seems to have gone on since 1850, never ending. We've got Val McDermid, who's the sort of queen of crime, and even has a pathology unit named after her now at, I think it's the University of St Andrews. So she's done very, very well globally as well. We've got Peter May, who has also done a lot of great books set in Scotland. So there's this really strong community of Scottish crime novels. And they've Val and a few of the others, Chris Brookmeyer and a few of the others, have even got together now, and they've formed a band called, what is it, the Fun Loving Crime Writers, I think it is they're called.
That's cool.
When they go to book festivals together, they also have a night where they sing and get together, and you can go and check them out. So it's quite good fun.
That is, I love that. Here in the States, Stephen King and some others have done something similar. I keep trying to get some of my folks to do that, but they're all everybody's an introvert in this business. So what sort of books do you write? What is your genre of choice?
So I started off writing contemporary women's fiction, and as much as I tried to make it lighthearted and fun, I always, within the first chapter or two, seemed to take a dark turn. And so my stories always end up being very dark women's fiction, and looking at quite the sort of the side of family life that isn't always so much fun, but ends up making us stronger. There's lots of good fodder for story in there. But recently I've decided to embrace my dark side, and so have gone full in on the psychological thriller. And I'm really, really enjoying that. So the first one of those is coming out later this year, and then I've started the second one. So it feels good actually to have made that kind of connection, that's actually where I was headed to all along. And I've heard this from other writers, that sometimes it can take a little bit of time to find your feet and where your true love is. So I think hopefully anyway, I've found it now.
That was part of my journey as well. Like I started off writing science fiction, and then turned to thrillers, and primarily like archaeological thrillers. But now it's like any thriller, anything I can anybody I can murder on the page is fair game now. So,
But I guess that's what keeps it interesting for us writers as well, is getting to kind of broach out and yes, it's still a thriller, but there's different settings and different character types, and you get to do a bit of research and different things. But it's good fun.
Yeah. I'm going to loop back to that. You said something I'm going to loop back on, but before I do, I want to remind everybody watching live that if you've got a question for our guest, and we are going to get into her, the main thing that's brought her here, and you're going to like it, but go ahead and ask your questions in the comments. We got folks hanging out, including our own Lexi Green, whom I hope you're feeling better. I know she was feeling a little under the weather earlier, so she's such a trooper, popping in to help us out. So now let's talk about, I want to talk a second about research. I promise we will get to your book and the reason you're here, but I wanted to talk about your research. Like, how do you handle research for these stories?
So I've go along the basis of doing what I need to do. I don't, and that maybe it's because I'm writing contemporary as well, rather than historical or a procedural. So I don't need to do that much level of technical research. But even still, so even though I'm writing, all of my stories are set in Scotland, and they're all set in either in Glasgow or they're set in a fictional small town that I've amalgamated from various places. But even with Glasgow, it's a city I was born in and raised in, but like cities change and they evolve. And so even good old Google Maps, being able to go into onto there and down into Street View and things like that, and remind myself of places and what they look like and get a feel for them, and even just the names of streets to kind of pick up some local street names, that can be useful and give it that feel of authenticity as well. So in terms of setting and where the book is, then I will do basic things like that. Wikipedia, for all that it's not everybody's favorites, it also is good for kind of basic stuff like that. But let me think if there's anything sort of job specific. So for example, the book that I'm writing at the moment, the main character in that, she's a cardiac nurse. So she works with heart patients. I don't know why she came to be a cardiac nurse. It's not something I know anything about. So then there's a level of research that needed to be done there. So, but I only research what I need to know, because I do worry about if I end up doing too much, then I might overspill into that. Oh, look how much research I've done. I must put it on the page. So I try to be circumspect about that and just look at what I need. So if I need some terminology for an operation that's happening, or some common parlance that might be used on a ward, then I'll go and look for that and maybe make a phone call or two to somebody I know who works in a hospital and try and get some information from them. But I try and do kind of a need to know basis rather than a full deep dive research into a particular topic. What about you? Do you find that you are similar, or do you really enjoy getting into archaeology?
I always have. So that's been a big bonus for me. It's like I've always enjoyed that, and I dive in and explore, and and a lot of it is the kind of like ancient alien style archaeology. So it's pretty interesting. It's fun to play around with. So how many books do you have out right now? How many have you published? Three. Okay. All right. And 100 more to come. You're already like churning them out.
That's it. Well, do you know, that was my aim when I first started this. I thought, that's it, I'm going to build this back catalogue. That's what I'm going to do. But interesting that too has sort of changed over the course of the years. And when I realized actually how much work is involved in building that back catalogue quickly, and trying to combine that with the rest of life. I've got 3 young kids, so trying to make sure that I can combine all of that has proven to be more than I can chew, So now I've realized, what? I don't need to have 100 books out. The others that have done that, kudos to them.
Yeah.
But I don't need to do that. And in fact, I can take my time a bit more and enjoy the process a bit more as well.
Yeah. Yeah. There is something to be said for that. Like I definitely got into that whole like pulp fiction writer rhythm for the first part of my career, where I'm like, I'm going to turn out a book a month. And I did that. And I'm at 70 now. So I'm still
Wow.
30 shy of my 100. So
Slacker.
I'm a slacker. We did get I'm going to post this quick question for you, and then we'll shift a little. But sorry, came in late. What is the title of Emma's book on Amazon, and not sure which one to buy first? What book should she buy first?
The first one is The Day She Came Home. That would be the first one to start with, and then the other two follow on from that. So Belonging would probably be the second one I'd recommend, and then the third is More Than Enough. So thank you for asking. Yeah, but The Day She Came Home would be the best one to start with.
All right. Okay. Now, let's shift gears slightly, because you have a new book out, all right, that you've co-authored this with someone. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, let me do my little plug.
Do your plug.
My little picture here. So it's called Launchpad: The Countdown to Writing Your Book, and I'm the co-lead author on this with a lady called Grace Salmon, and this is the first of 3 books. And it's funny, it's an anthology, and we, between the two of us, we asked a number of people who we knew who we thought would be really good people to come in and write about different subjects. And I love the way sometimes serendipity just plays a hand, because about 2 weeks prior to Grace coming to me and asking me to be part of this, I had just read an anthology published by the British Library, and it was a beautiful object and had a whole range of writers, artists, comic designers, a whole range of people coming in to talk about creativity and writing and the advice that they've been given, and what the advice that they would now give to somebody else. And what I loved about it was the different voices that I got, and the different perspectives from people, because everybody was coming at it from a different starting point. So when Grace came to me 2 weeks later after having read that and said, I've got this idea, I want to pull this anthology together with lots of different writers, what do you think? I was like, yes, no, this is great, I love this. We can work with some fantastic other writers and bring in what we think are the real main things that people need to know about when they're writing either their first novel, or maybe somebody's taken a break for a while, they've lost their mojo and they just need to get back into it again. Then this book would be a great option for somebody who's just looking for knowing what they need to know to get back into it. So we do cover things, the basics, like character development and point of view. And what else have we got in there? Scene structure, which I'm a big fan of. I love scene structure and think it's as important, if not more important, than the kind of story structure element of things.
Interesting.
But we also wanted to bring in topics that might be a little bit more niche and useful to first-time writers. And one of the first chapter, in fact, is about research and how to research. And we've got a great lady who'd come in to write about online tools that you can use, as well as if you can, being able to go to the place and visit somewhere, for example, or being able to go to an organization and chat to them about legal things or economics or whatever it might be that you are writing about. And she's not a librarian, this lady, but she really should be, because what makes this extra special is that she's giving you the actual, this is how you search for something, using the pipe tool, or using the plus sign, or using speech marks. So things that you might not necessarily know about, but which will narrow that search down so you're getting what you want. And like, she gives a great example of how, if you were to say you were writing a Western and you were looking to write about the Dallas Cowboys, but you don't want the Dallas Cowboys football team. I think it's football. Yeah. You want actual Cowboys. So how do you make sure you don't get the Dallas Cowboy football team in your research results? So really useful, practical things like that, which I loved. But the other chapter that I really, really wanted to have in there, because I struggle with this, is I wanted a chapter just on grammar and punctuation. We didn't need a whole book on it. We just needed a chapter to tell us writers what we need to do for our prose and our speech and things. And I just loved having that in. And it always makes me laugh, because whenever I talk about that, I can always see heads go down and people scribbling, and that's the chapter that they're like, yeah, I need that. So it's quite reaffirming to know I'm not the only person who struggles with grammar and punctuation.
Well, it doesn't help, I coming up through university, it seemed like I was a double major, and I was coming in from having done a completely different major and getting a different degree. And every one of those had a different set of, not necessarily different grammar rules, but to some extent, yes. So they had different rules about what was appropriate and that sort of thing. Things like, whether or not to use a serial comma, or whether or not, punctuation goes in or outside the quotation marks. It was crazy stuff. So very confusing.
It is, isn't it? And I think ultimately what we concluded was that nothing is absolutely right or wrong, but whatever you plump for, stick with it. Be consistent throughout the book.
Yeah. Alyssa's echoing this is my go-to grammar tool. Writerly Grammar 101, M dash everywhere. I M dash the heck out of every book I write. So I don't.
And that was an interesting thing as well about the M dash in the UK, and I think also in Canada and Australia, we don't use it in the same way. We have a space dash space. So thankfully, Stacey was able to include, just the international usage as well. So
yeah.
So hopefully we've covered everybody.
That's another style guide one, though, because I think Chicago manual style says to put a space around it, but everyone else says not to. So yeah, so it's that's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, there's regional, and then there's style guide, and everyone's going to do something. So you can practically do whatever you want, really. Just say, make up a style guide. Just make one up and say that's the one I use.
Well, ultimately, I get the feeling, especially as an indie, that you possibly can. So you can make up your own style guide, but as long as you stick to it, then
be consistent. Yes, that's the rule. Whatever you're going to do, just be like when I type okay, if I say something is okay, I use it as it's either, if it's in the middle of a sentence, it's all lowercase. If it's at the front of a sentence, it's capital O. But you can do it all the ways you can do it are right. You can do capital OK, all cap. You can do spell out OK, OKAY. You can do any of those things according to the style guides. But the trick is just keep it consistent. So that's a free lesson to everybody. You didn't tune in for that, but you got that one for free. So let's talk a little bit about because you now we talked a bit about this before the show started, and you're not specifically here to talk about how to launch a book, but you have some experience in launching books on your own. And I want to loop this back to what you're talking about in the actual book and the actual Launchpad book. So to start though, what was sort of your process? Let's just look at Launchpad. What's the process for launching this book?
It's been very similar to doing the fiction books, in that we had our lead magnet, which we would do even with our fiction, which might be a short story or some other sort of free offering to entice people in.
Yeah.
So we had, one of the lovely things about this book is that each contributor to the book, at the back, we asked them to come up with a top 10 countdown of the things that they think are really, really important for the reader to take on board and follow up on after they've read the chapter. And so we offered those top 10s as our lead magnets. And so each contributor could then be part of that promotional process, and they can offer out the lead magnet for their particular chapter. Once someone signed up for that lead magnet, then of course we were able to capture their email address, and when the book came out, email them and say, the book is live, the book is available for purchase, here's where you can go and get it. Just as I would have done with a fiction piece as well, my fiction books as well. So that worked lovely in exactly the same way. We've done a lot of social media as well, and making sure that we are, all of us, all the contributors, which is wonderful. Another kind of nice part of being part of an anthology is that there's lots of voices to share the news about the book, which is great. And then obviously, of course, emails, letting people know who are on our mailing list that this has come out as well and is available. And because it's a series, so this is a new experience for me in series. I write standalone, so it's almost a kind of one and done, really. But with this is really interesting. So book 2 has just come out. It came out yesterday. Where are we?
Okay.
On Tuesday. It came out on Tuesday, which is Launchpad, the countdown to publishing your book. So there's 2, and so we're able to do similar things for the second book as well, to get people excited and get them interested in the book so that they get to know what they can expect from it. Again, when you capture the email address, we can then email those people and let them know that the book is available. And we'll do exactly the same for book 3, which is the Launchpad 2, marketing your book. So you've got all the sections that you need for it.
Now you're ringing some bells. Everybody's going to want that one.
That's it. We're looking for that read through, that magic read through.
Yes. Yeah. That's
really
that's
word of mouth, I think, is kind of a big part of it. And now we'll also be doing sort of newsletter promotions as well, which I know is a big part of many people's launching and marketing strategy.
So did you already have an author facing platform, like an email newsletter?
Yeah.
How'd you build that?
Yeah, so that's actually where I'm most active, actually, is with my writers, with the people who I help write their books. And so I already had a nice sized audience for that, as do many of the other contributors as well.
Yeah.
So some are more focused on the fiction, so there'll be a smaller proportion of their readers who are interested in the writing side of things. But most of the people who are involved in this anthology and in the others already have a good established database of people who are looking to write. So for example, in book 2, Brooke Warner, she's one of our contributing authors, so we know that she's got a great platform already. And Erica Lance from Horseman, the 4 Horsemen, I think it is, publishing, again, has a good mailing list there already established. So it's being able to tap into the communities that we've got, the people that we know. Being able to do wonderful shows like this is another way of reaching new potential readers as well. So very, very similar, doing the non-fiction as we would do our fiction books as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's it's interesting because that's where if you are trying to shift and add, say, nonfiction to your catalog, that's always a challenge for these authors. So what do you find has been you've done both fiction and nonfiction? I have too, and I know what a headache sometimes that can be. What are some of the ways that you sort of manage those 2 different genres?
So I do use the same pen name, so I do keep that for my own sanity. I use 2 different email service providers, and that sort of helps me just to kind of get into, I'm in writing mode now. Okay, this is who I use for my reader mode, and it just helps my brain switch as to who I need to be talking to. I find it easier to correspond to and keep in touch with my writing audience, because there's always something to be talked about and said about writing, and I'm always writing, so there's always something to kind of share with that. I don't know how you're a much more prolific writer than me, but I am quite a slow writer, so it might be 2 years, 18 months to 2 years between release dates. So I find that harder actually to communicate with my reader audience, because how many times do they want to hear I'm still writing? So it's
you have to get away from you have to start presenting them with some other little tidbit to chew on. I always say you want to be personable, not personal, but personable, meaning
Mm-hmm.
tell them little stories that I like to tell them stories that get them to make fun of me personally, because you've got them if they feel comfortable enough to poke fun at you. Sorry.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but and does that kind of resonate with the type of stories that you write as well? Are they quite humorous and light and fun?
The characters are. So I think, they're not like, it's not slapstick, but
Uh-huh.
they're wry. They have dry sensitive humor like me, and so I think that they find that relatable. So you could probably
Yeah.
do something similar.
Um, maybe that I should. I'm not the funniest, I have to admit, when it comes to my writing. It's quite somber. But no, you're absolutely right. It's sharing what I'm reading, or sharing what I'm researching, or even just sharing what's going on in my life a little bit. I don't mind doing that. And who doesn't like a cat photo or a dog
Yeah,
photo? Those are always
exactly.
winners if you're at a loss.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
But I
Uh,
know that other people really, really enjoy it, and have great fun, and really just have this natural knack for like building this community with their
yeah.
readers, and they become
Yeah.
friends. And it's a
Yeah.
skill I really, really admire. I don't think they know that they've got that skill. This is just natural for them.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not setting out to accomplish something. They just are acting natural. Yeah. I kind
Yeah.
of envy that myself. So I'm looking at your website, by the way, and it says the book coach for pantsers. And as a pantser myself, that has me intrigued. Like how does that work? How are you a coach for pantsers?
Because I'm not. I think as pantsers, we have a better appreciation for the fact that people write differently, that
Hmm.
we don't have a set process for it exactly.
Right.
We evolve our own process that works for us, that doesn't involve spreadsheets, and it doesn't involve who pops in here and disappears there, and
Right.
at what percentage we need this, that, and the other, but rather that we learn a kind of feel for it,
Yeah.
and it becomes more instinctive than I'm thinking of someone like Save the Cat, where it's fairly prescriptive,
Yeah.
and it clearly works for Jessica Brody, and for many people who enjoy that style. And I've tried it, and I just can't get to grips with them. And a lot of the people who end up coming to me, I've noticed, are also pantsers.
Yeah.
And it's when I kind of recognized that basically all my clients are pantsers, I realized, okay, I am the coach for pantsers. Why not embrace that?
Why not? Yeah.
But it's just allowing them to kind of find their flow and find their process. And because I write with debut novelists, then they're still at that process of finding out how they work. And do they get 3/4 of the way through the book and realize they hate the story and they never want to see it again, but then they get to 80% and they realize actually they love it.
Yeah.
And it takes writing a manuscript or two to realize that is the kind of emotional journey that you
Yeah.
might go on.
Yeah.
So rather than sort of having a set formula or a set way that I think people should write, it's a way. Really, what I'm trying to do is encourage people to tune into their own intuition and discernment, and understand and learn that yes, there is craft, and yes, there is structure that we do need in a story, but you can find that intuitively. It doesn't need to be as rigorous as some other people do prefer, and it works for them. And so I think that's the difference, the main difference I've got.
Yeah. So so the first Launchpad book, I mean, is this the kind of thing that is it structured? Is it aiming at the Panzer crowd or the outliner crowd, or is this a sort of open playing field?
I think you can have a bit of both in here,
Yeah.
because you do need structure, even if you're a pantser, even if you've no clue what's going to happen. I think most
Yeah.
people have a clue as to what's going to happen in their story, but say that you are somebody who just starts with that opening scene and you don't know what's going to happen next. That's absolutely fine. Go for it, fill your boots. But at some stage, as we know as pantsers, usually there's a lot more work to be done on the back end, and we do need
Right.
to add a degree of structure at that point. Because by the time we've written the first draft, we know the story now, we know what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
and we can recognize where the holes are. And by looking at structure, we can then go in and fill in those holes where we need to, when we start to kind of put more of our editing hat on.
Yeah.
I also think that scene structure is a great one for someone who, and again, I think this can be used in revision. It doesn't need to be used when you're first drafting, but I just love scene structure. And I wish I discovered it when I first started writing, because it makes everything so much easier. It just allows the story to flow with a lot more fluidity when you know that one scene is leading on to the next, leading on to the next.
That's the second time you've gushed over scene structure. So we're going to talk about this because I want to know what you mean by that. But I was going to just drop in that when it comes to pantsers and outlining, the joke I tell, and it's half serious, is that, you know, I do outline. I just outline in long form. You know, I don't, because by the time the book's over, it is effectively in the shape. It's in a shape, not necessarily shape it's going to end up in, and then you go back and loop back and rewrite. And so let's talk about scene structure, because I that's not a term I hear very often. So what do you mean by scene structure?
So I believe every scene, if you have a sort of set sort of structure to each scene, it will make your life much easier, in that at the beginning of every scene there should be an aim for it. There's a purpose that the scene is there.
Okay.
And it's good to know, either as you're first drafting or in revision, you want to know why the scene is included. So what is the aim of it? What is your character going into that scene wanting?
Yeah.
Then we need to know that there's going to be a problem of some description. We're going to have that obstacle, the conflict that, of course, every scene needs to have. Otherwise, you know, it doesn't really add much. So it could be a conflict of action, could be very, you know, physical, and there's the you know, there's a spy and they're trying to get a document, and there's a physical obstacle to doing that. Equally, that obstacle might be more of an emotional one. And maybe somebody is trying to have a difficult conversation with the other person in the scene. They're trying to say what they think, but something's holding them back, and giving that bit of conflict and giving us that kind of rub that we want to see, that makes life difficult for the character. They then, whatever the conflict is, their character then has to respond to that in some way. And whether it be the spy, I don't know, he decks the bodyguard, or, you know, knocks them out and gets the document, or in our kind of more emotional scene, then maybe the character digs deep. You know, they have to reveal something about themselves that they didn't want to reveal, and that is going to have an impact on what happens next. So by the end of that scene, something must have happened. We've got a resolution of some sort of the conflict, whether it might be to a decision about what they're going to do next, or maybe it's a time where they're going to reflect on what's just happened before deciding what they're going to do. And it's that end bit that, you know, let's say a character makes a decision about what they're going to do next. Okay, by the end of this scene, we know they've made that decision. The next scene is a natural lead on to them carrying out the decision that they've decided that they're going to make. Am I being clear? Is that?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's basically like you're applying sort of some of the rules of story structure to the individual scenes. Each scene is kind of a microcosm of the story, so you want to give it the same sort of treatment. I do have a couple of questions will pop up. This one's from eCar eBooks on YouTube. Asks, does Emma do any advertising, and if so, what platform? Do you advertise?
Yeah, I do sometimes. I'm not very consistent with it.
There's that consistency again. We gotta.
I'm still looking for. I go through phases, so I have advertised both with Amazon and with Facebook. Facebook's the one I use most.
Yeah,
because I like the targeting that can be done with it. I'm still kind of playing around with things like my blurb and the keywords and stuff. So I'm still trying to figure out what will work for me, because what I've noticed so far is that ultimately I've been paying people to read my book. So then I'll take a break when I see that it's not quite working, and then I have to go back and rejig. I've done I've done some training with Mal Cooper on Facebook ads, and I've been through Brian Cohen's Amazon ad school as well, which I loved. Actually, I really like both the way that they teach, but I have a big shout out for the Brian's ad school, because the support that they give, I think is phenomenal. They're really, really helpful.
Yeah.
So like everything, and like writing itself, you know, I find advertising to be a trial and error thing. And so I'm still, you know, relatively new in my marketing efforts. So this is something that I'm still trialing and making errors with. But I didn't start doing advertising until I had the 3 books published. I did wait before I started doing that. I know, you know, the wiser people than me talk about you've got to write in series to make any money on it, but if not, then wait till you've at least got 2 or 3 books out. So that's what I've been trying with, and so I tend to start and stop. My aim is to get to 10 books and then be able to see kind of what a difference that might make when there's more to choose from.
Yeah. No, I think you've got a good strategy though, because when you didn't start, I mean, basically you still released them one at a time, but you didn't actually start the full-on marketing push, like the ads and that sort of thing, until you had something that people could read through to, which is good. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest as well, you know, when I'm writing those first 3 books, I'm still learning how to write, and that is big in and of itself. So to then throw in and you know, particularly for Facebook, it's pretty intensive learning to do it. It's not easy to do. So to throw that in on top of just trying to get the books out, for me anyway, that was too much to do all at once. I needed to pace that out a bit.
Yeah. This question comes from Alyssa. She's actually one of our D2D folks. Asks, have you found your book writing speed up any, or is it your stage of life with kids?
Definitely. It's definitely sped up. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So I think, like most people, that first book took a good 5 years or so to write. And that was in between. My kids were all preschoolers then. So that was, you know, nap time whenever I could find the energy. And that was fine. I needed it at that point just to give me some sanity, and that was nothing to do with the kids. So it was really important just for that purpose. With the second and third book, that definitely sped up. I felt more secure and sure about what I was doing. And I seemed to just have a little bit of a role there. I was just loving it, just really, really flying with it and really enjoying the whole thing. Things then have slowed down again.
Yeah.
We moved continent. We moved from we were in Hong Kong. We moved from Hong Kong to Scotland. So that then kind of bit into how much energy I could give to things. Then I started a business doing the coaching, which, as you'll know, kind of bites into creativity as well.
Yeah.
But
worse than the kids, I think.
Oh, yes. 100%. So thankfully, they're all getting a bit older now, which is good. But it's definitely, and I feel, you know, the more I write, and of course, the more I learn, the more I teach, the more I learn. It's just a wonderful kind of lovely upward spiral of learning my craft and my trade and learning from other people. And I'll tell you what I've done though recently, which is just, I don't know how you write, Kevin. Maybe you do pen and paper, maybe you do computer. I've always been pen and paper girl. I love writing my first drafts the old-fashioned way. But I get a lot of migraines now. I get a lot of body aches and pains. And so as a way to combat this, is I'm now have delved into dictation. And it's...
well, it looks like we've had a slight dropout. Sorry about that, everybody watching. Hopefully Emma is able to rejoin. Oh, there she is.
Am I back?
There she is. She's back. You know, when things like that happen, my first worry is always that I've had some sort of episode, like a stroke, perhaps. So I'm glad you came back. Emma.
No, all good, all good. But
Good.
yeah, so no, so I've made that move to dictation, and I remember talking to Andrea Pearson, who writes I think she writes romance. She certainly used to, and that was the way that she wrote. And it is quite an adjustment, I think, but it's so much quicker. Oh my goodness! And we'll see when it's all written out and transcribed out whether it's any better or worse than doing it by hand. But
Yeah.
it's a lot easier on the body, that's for
It's
sure.
so I've tried it a few times. I will be honest, I haven't given it a fair shot. But we have my good friend Nick Thacker, who also works with me here at D2D. He dictates his books, and you know, his output is amazing. But I'm like, and he's even created a course around it. And he's given it to me for free, and I'm so lazy I won't even do the course. So
Got no skin in the game. That's it.
yes,
It
yes.
is
Well,
though. No, I agree
yeah.
with you. I remember taking there was another guy who did Dragon Anywhere, and he did a course about using that. And it was tough, and I tried it for a while and I gave up because I just found it too, because I do enjoy actually the handwriting. I find it really meditative.
Yes. Yeah.
But needs must, and I just thought, you know what, if I want to do this for the long haul, I've got to find a way to shift. I've got to find a way to change, otherwise I'm just going to be crippled, and that's no fun. So
right.
Yeah, needs must. So we'll see how it goes.
That is the important lesson, I think, is that, you know, I know we all have our preferred way of doing things. I do too. And I've got all kinds, my arms are wrecked from, I'm sure carpal tunnel is set in nice and strong. But if you want to keep doing this, you have to be willing to adapt and try new things in order to keep going. So I think that's a good lesson, actually.
Yeah.
So is any of that in Launchpad, by the way? Do you talk about
dictation?
dictation?
It's not. I should do that. Maybe for my next nonfiction, I can incorporate, making that shift and doing what you need to do in order to make life easier for yourself. And sometimes that short-term discomfort can give long-term benefit. I should have done it. It's a good point.
No, that's a good one. Yeah, that's and that you make a very good point. Like that is short-term discomfort, just like any other learning any other skill, learning a language, learning to work out. It's only short term. So if you can endure I tell my wife this all the time. She rolls her eyes at me, but like if you can just endure a little bit of discomfort, then you can actually have this grander experience. She doesn't like me applying that to things like us taking weekend trips to. We took a weekend trip to Orlando, and I was trying to do it on the cheap, and so she did not embrace the idea of a little bit of discomfort.
No, I'm with your wife on that one. When it comes to travel, we want comfort.
Yeah, I come from a different school on travel. I'm that guy who travels like with a backpack, and I'm going to be gone for a month, and here's everything I'm taking with me.
Those days are gone. Those days are gone. I want first class all the way.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm getting into that too. Yeah. My wife has convinced me. Well, I think we're kind of at the end now. We're gonna have to wrap up. I'm gonna be playing, and I need you to stick around, by the way. And I forgot to tell you this before we start recording, but stick around long enough because the recording uploads from you. So stick around. But I have this is where I picked to send everybody. Is this going to work for you, Emma? To go to Emma Dhesi, emmadhesi.com.
Perfect. Yeah, you'll find out everything about me there. Podcast, my own podcast there, my YouTube channel, how I can help you if you are looking for any kind of coaching or help. It's all there.
Excellent. All right. Well, that is Emma Dhesi. That's EMMADHESI.com for those who are listening to just the audio podcast. We wouldn't leave you hanging. And Dhesi. Emma, thank you so much for being a part of Self-Publishing Insiders. All right, everybody, for you, make sure that you like and subscribe because that's very important to us on all the various platforms. Make sure you also bookmark d2dlive.com so that you know when we got new shows coming up. We got a new one every Thursday. New podcast launches on Thursday. New live stream launches on Thursday. Thursday is a big day for Draft to Digital. So go to d2dlive.com. And before we wrap off for the day, we want you to take a little bit of a look at this 30-second spice, 30 seconds out of your day to learn just a brief bit about Draft to Digital's D2D print. So thank you again, Emma. And for everyone else, we'll see you all next time. Ebooks are great, but there's just something about having your words in print. Something you can hold in your hands, put on a shelf, sign for a reader. That's why we created D2D Print, a print-on-demand service that was built for you. We have free, beautiful templates to give your book a pro look, and we can even convert your ebook cover into a full wraparound cover for print. So many options for you and your books. And you can get started right now at drafttodigital.com.